Hello, Gravitrons. I'm Mark Gravity. Let's play chess. I'm gonna go over this game that I finished just a few minutes ago. I think I'll also probably go over the game after it, but I'm not sure. This is the second of two games against this opponent. Let's take a look at the white pieces. Scandinavian defense. Typically, knight comes to c3, attacking the queen and developing with tempo. I like to block with my queen on e2. If my opponent trades queens, then we have a queenless middle game, and white is not at any disadvantage as a result of that. You don't want to feel compelled to block with your bishop. Bishop blocking with the bishop is also fine, actually. And the queen, and black's queen is a little vulnerable, and you might be able to get another piece or a pawn developed with tempo. However, after queen e5 check, I advise against knight at g to e2. Either knight to e2 is bad here, blocking in some of our most important pieces and slowing down white's path to castling kingside, which is sort of a more than usual priority because there's a black queen on the loose here in the middle of a mostly untouched chessboard. So I would advise queen e2, and after that, maybe bishop e2 probably gets things going well as well. So I played queen e2. The exchange of queens on e2 is common. It's not the only way for black. See, he's on e5. Developing moves like knight c6 are fine. And then if white wants to trade queens, white does so at the expense of sort of losing at tempo, if you will. And the knight comes to e5, and he's both a target and a archer at e5. Okay, getting a little bit into depth on that. Now we have this queenless middle game. White is definitely slightly better, having two pieces developed, and black the black pieces on there's only black pieces on the board on the 7th and 8th rank. No piece has moved off its starting square except for those that have already been captured or traded, however you want to term that. Usually captured. And I'll move my bishop again to get this pretty good pin in place. It's not the best move. Look, bishop to d7 diffuses it. So, I mean, I could try to say that knight e2 was a good move to follow up. I needed the bishop off the e2 square, but not really. The knight is probably going to go to f3. So I may have played bishop b5 without thinking exactly about black's defensive options. And so here we are in a blitz game, and the defensive options are overlooked by both players. Bishop to f5 also overlooks the best move, which is bishop to d7, blocking against both the pin and the potential doubling of pawns. Right, so bishop d7 is best. Bishop f5 though is a well reasoned move, putting the bishop outside of the range of attack of white's pieces, most of white's pieces, and he's strong. He's eyeing the unguarded c2 pawn. So let's see how I responded. In the most active way, I'm gonna say goodbye to my c2 pawn and push d4, because if I have time to push d5, yes, my opponent has grabbed this pawn, but this is menacing against black. The pinned piece being attacked by a pawn is a major way in many games to win material. Let's see how black responded. The fine move, the great move, the only move that allows black to stay in the game, pawn to a6, challenging the bishop and undermining tactics that would win this knight one way or another. So I went ahead with things as d captures c6. I'm losing my bishop. I didn't get any material out of that, but I got a few things that I think are worthy overall. Knight takes b5. gathering a pawn to equal the material, and now uh, knight takes c7 check looms large on the chessboard here, on the chess screen here. My opponent castles queenside, and that's the way to deal with it. And I'm of course going to. I didn't. I thought I would maybe have played c takes b7 check to liquidate this pawn that's I see as mostly a liability. I mean, there's who's going to save this pawn? Who will save your soul when you're drunk and you're put in the hole? The hole is where they keep drunk people that have been arrested. But that's Jewel, and she deserves more respect than that. But it's a good song, and I changed the lyrics around. Check it out. It's called "Who Will Save Your Soul," and it's really thoughtful, great song. But this pawn would normally be worried about that, except then I played bishop to e3 instead. Pawn takes c6. Knight to a7 is strong. Yes, I might be capturing on c6 to even the material situation. However, there's a lot of ways that black can be tempted to mostly bungle this. King b8, for instance. How about knight c6 check? I said c6. I meant a7. Knight a7. And then king b8 to harass the knight or just to move. Then knight c6 is forking His Highness and the rook. There's just a lot of there's a lot of danger mines nearby. But also, I want to mention knight a7 is a great move. Also because it gets out of danger. But this is for the long term, right? Our dark square bishop is keeping this knight protected. It's the only piece protecting the knight, but it's a very strong protection nonetheless. The dark square bishop is a long ways away from, getting to that knight. The knight on g8 is too, like, a long ways from being able to help out on black side of the board against this knight. The rook is higher value, so that also doesn't really help black all that much. And black's most valuable, most dynamic, most developed piece on c2 can't ever attack the a7 knight. And bishop on c2 will not be on a7. Trust me about that. And let's say, so this is a long-term hindrance of black's position. The king moves in. Is at b7. No, there's ideas maybe of rook a8 captures, and it's two pieces for rooks. So I respect that. That's a strong plan. However, a little bit of criticism. I don't think my opponent went through with that plan, and then again, I might not have given Larson time to go through with that plan. Here I am attacking a loose piece with the idea of winning material on c6. My opponent plays well, with bishop a4. Now this piece is protected twice. White is not going to be winning material against it quite yet. However, b3, bishop b5, a4, and the bishop runs out of ways to keep the second protector on c6. Pick up this very important pawn, not just because it's a 1 point in the material, cha-ching, as Miley Cyrus would say, but point in material. It gets the knight off the edge, and we're starting to break through against black's king side. There's a tempo lost to how is black gonna deal with the fact that his rook is threatened. So a lot of things are coming together very well here for white. And there's some, but knight b4, just major piece, winning material, or else I'll get your only other active piece. Standard. It's not a material winning fork, but it's a pretty strong fork because black can't really stand to lose the bishop on a6, especially if king recaptures. Then rook takes c7, and we've got a rook on the 7th rank. This rook can go to c8 and hit at some of these pieces that are not yet developed. This is not this black bishop is not developed, nor protected, so that this is the 8th rank is a possibility for white to make headway. Knight takes a6, and white is making some progress in material. It's even material. I love this. I love this when you see this. When we see this even material, right? And it's black's turn to move. But white is way ahead in terms of for instance, the evaluation bar. And I would agree with that. That there's non-material factors. This check on the king, rook to c8, maybe ganging up on e7. So many different ways for white to make a plan and a good plan. And the materials even, but king safety. Oh, not so good for black. Loose pieces. Ooh, not so good for black. Mobility. White's got that covered. Okay, maybe the rooks are about the same, but I've got this bishop that's already developed. And I think my opponent gives me a check here, or otherwise I would have a knight that's developed. So this is very strongly viewed in favor of white for non-material reasons. And that's one way to learn more about chess. So often we are to go up a piece, then pick off a pawn, and then whittle things down to an endgame, promote, and checkmate. That's part of chess, no doubt about it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's also cool to see a lead built on non-material factors. Picking up this pawn on f7 looks like it was a bit of a miss. I think what we're looking at instead is the mate and 1 on a7, right? So that would have been a good way to tidy this up quite a bit quicker. I have to understand maybe some of the factors are material. Perhaps if avoiding this mate costs black material, which it doesn't. I don't know, maybe it does. I don't know, Jordan. Black, some of this might be material because I think black's best try at avoiding the mate there is rook to b7. We have rook to c6 check. Shimmying away is not good because of the white pawn here. And black would play, let's use help by the machine, but I think that there is somewhere in it for white to gain material out of this mate threat, composed with the pieces of the pawn, the dark squared bishop, and the c7 rook. This is bursting my own bubble a bit. Rook takes e3, f takes e3, and by the fact that the computer best move is to jettison the exchange, I'm going to say that that material will be gained by white here with best play. Okay, so that's that. That goes a little bit against what I said about having such a wonderful board where non-material factors were as strong as 4.1 in white's favor, but it's more accurate, and that's more in terms of teaching and progressing in chess. We're with accuracy. I'm with accuracy. I think many of us are. So rook takes f7 ignores the mate in 1. So I missed the mate in 1. That's not how I would have it, but I'm gonna trudge on and see if I can claim a win nonetheless. And there, my opponent drops a rook in this manner. Because bishop b4 was a bad mistake. The rook is already dropped, and you say, well, then why isn't knight to e7 considered a mistake? White captures on b1. Immediately after that, drops the full rook. Well, that's a good question, and the answer is bishop b4 loses the majority of this, right? It's white's ahead by about 1.7 pawns. Bishop b4, and there's like more than 3.5 pawns after that. Bishop b4 blocks the way from the b1 rook to retreat along the b file. So we're going to inch our king towards here, grab some extra material, and we're ahead a ton of material now. Yes. Knight takes e5 is one of those scrappy moves that works well against the most natural response would be to capture e5, but then rook takes e7 check, and yes, the bishop retreats back to c7, blocking the rook, and white can pile on in a number of different ways, and so knight takes e5 is enlivened. Or if the king moves out of the way of the check, then the rook at e7 captures the bishop at e5. And so it's just in the scramble here, white picks up a lot of material. We're making sure not to stalemate our opponent. Right? This pawn's alive. He can move once, twice, thrice, and 4 times before he's run out of moves, and he hasn't run out of moves. He's still one type of minor piece, rook or queen, and he'll have moves. We don't really want another queen on the board. I'm saying more that black's not going to be able to stalemate himself because this pawn is free. This pawn, however, we note is pinned, so can't help white, sort of in the backwards way. But this pawn will be plenty of that. King to g8, rook g8, or rook g7 check, and then there's a number of different ways. Queen a7, we could have made the checkmate on h6. I'm kind of going through this quickly. There is a checkmate, of course, on h6. Under pressure, I chose something that seemed to be the best move given all the different variables. And after king to g8, rook to g7 check, and then I chose with my rook at d6 to move to d8 checkmate, rook d8 checkmate. That was that. Now the question is, might I go over this game? This was against the same opponent the game earlier. As you can see, I had the board for the most of the game, and then I didn't finish in time. It was a timeout versus material, and we drew. So let's take a look, see if there's anything that I want to comment on. I'm not sure I'm gonna actually make any comments on this, so if you want to just look at the computer annotations, then that might be a good way to learn more about this game if you're interested. Here, d4. I would want to capture en passant and have an open file against the white king. However, that's not as feasible as it seems. The queen can't access e5. The queen can't access e7. So, anyway, complications. Let's scoot ahead a bit. Overall, this game was not as accurate as the one I presented earlier. Sometimes we have to play despite imperfections and inaccuracies. People make mistakes, and that's also why we play on in inferior positions sometimes. Here's a second to take out. Bishop to e3. I don't want to go into this in too much depth. This is a very strong move by black. Mostly that these two are protecting each other in the middle of the board, and just how the other pieces fit in. There's not much to take this bishop out. So I just want to say this. I'm seeing. I look at knight e4, and I see that as an opportunity to play bishop e3. We're gonna want to. Yep, there we go. And then another similar, almost similar in some ways to bishop e3. After bishop f3 and the king moving over to help with the defense, bishop e2 is strong. Now you would want to, in some situations, you want to be aware of if there were, say, a rook on d1. Rook takes d1, and then if black were to play rook takes e2, this other rook comes down, rook takes rook at d8, checkmate. But fortunately, there was no rook on d1, and I think if there were, I would have noticed and not played that same move. But this tension here is completely blocking any kind of productive play by white. So I have time to look at the king. Watch the king what he does now. The black king is just one move at a time. Boom, 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 boom. He's chasing the rook away, I'm pretty sure. Yep, there goes the rook. Boom, boom, boom. Then the bishop's like, thank you, king. And, blocking the line of attack. And there's a queen. There's pawns being captured, not because they're all that crazy dangerous, but because we don't want to see a rush that turns into a queen. I might have played queen takes c4 here. In the game, as it were, I was a little bit flustered and under the gun of time pressure, so I had to go all the way down and create these new queens, and then somehow landed a timeout versus material insufficiency with time on my clock. Some things you can't make up. And you can't make that up. This is a timeout. I lost this game from material insufficiency versus timeout. There's time on my clock. Anyway, where I wanted to really point things out was here. White plays to d5. Really, the move was as I shown. Queen takes c4 check, and this will be settled. It's not quite a checkmate, but we're gonna guard the queen side after capturing on b5. The king, white's king moves somewhere. As long as he has more than one square, a couple squares to which he may move, then this a pawn is all the way through to a1. Instead, I played this not so good move, queen to b4. Just not sure what I was doing, and there's a little bit of averaging. Yeah, because my mind was thinking partly queen takes c4 check, and partly just wait here and get the b pawn once this one moves. And I was also thinking maybe queen takes b5 check, and even if it loses a queen, somehow I catch my breath and my ideas and make do out of it. But this sort of middling move, queen to b4, is not so good. It's not the best move there. Let's play this out against practice. Okay, so Queen takes c4 check. And then just looking here, then queen takes b5. There's no promotion threats on the queen side. So, and this pawn is guarded from here till, whenever. And there we go. Okay. We weren't looking at this game. Got the highlights. And so as you see, this game was decent in terms of accuracy. Not all that great, though. Not 100%. All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.